morning,
Hi,
Maddie.
how are you today?
Doing well.
It's good to see you.
Likewise.
First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise with us
My
through this
pleasure. Thank you.
very stressful time
hmm
for a lot of people. You know, before all of this happened, I was actually on my way to building this platform where, unfiltered. Unfiltered is this channel.
hmm
And the platform is really to provide people with a safe place for unfiltered conversations so that they had that safe place, right, in the world. Now this pandemic happens and I feel even more need to just talk about this and create this because man, there's a lot of people stressing out
Yep.
today and we can all relate. We're all going through the same thing, but really we're all going also through different things, and
Yep.
that's all because of how we react and how we respond. You are very knowledgeable with how to maintain our wellness, our mental, emotional, and physical wellness. And
hmm
that's why I thought my viewers would really appreciate having you here. So if you could tell them a little bit about yourself and
Sure.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm happy to connect with you and continue a conversation we've been having for some time now about life, and especially with different ways of approaching life and dealing with what life gives us. So, a bit about my background. I have a doctorate in education from Columbia, focused in communication, and I have worked with clients as young as 7 years old all the way up to 70. Taught in a variety of different contexts, and right now, since 2015, have founded and directed a private coaching consulting business where I've worked with, again, a broad range of clients, 7 to 70, and have done a number of things to help transform their lives physically through their bodies and how they process life, as well as intellectually, and the sorts of habits of mind, ways of thinking, and ways of doing things in the world that can serve them moving forward. So just to explain this a little bit more, what that looks like is two things. One, I teach a series of breathing and movement exercises that come out of psychoanalysis. These help to increase oxygen intake into the blood, improve circulation, and reduce stress and tension in the body. At the same time, they also bring the body into greater alignment, where we have a greater sense of fluidity in how we are able to deal with life on a daily basis. At the same time, I also work on, as I said, the intellectual side, which has to do with how we approach issues, how we work through opportunities that may present themselves, and ultimately whether or not we are actualizing the kind of lives that we want. I see this as a function of the body, meaning what we can tolerate is what we can do. And that's really the basis of where my work comes in with these exercises.
Wow, I love that. That's so amazing. I feel that for me, I see it as a spiritual flow, right? And that's what I talk to a lot of my viewers about, or I talk to people that I know.
hmm
But it's amazing. It's the same thing. I mean, it's all the same. I think it's so important to understand ourselves, our body, so that we're better able to help ourselves in understanding how our body flows and how our function and what are the things that we can be in control of
hmm
to make the changes necessary to flow and to live a better life. It's
hmm
basically self-awareness and awareness of your body, awareness in your mind, awareness in your heart. It comes down to that. And
hmm
from that point, it's where you can actually make the change. And
Right.
so putting yourself through it, envisioning it,
hmm
I guess we talk about flow. Well, let's back up. So we have the virus, the pandemic, right?
hmm
And we
hmm
have this crazy amount of fear, information, and
hmm
how that is understood by people. So when I think of the virus or you were telling me it's like a virus of overload of information, and how that blocks us. I can take two people and somebody can say, I've been home for 4 weeks. I'm so grateful. I'm doing fine. Somebody could say, I just can't be home. I can't deal with my this environment. I need to go back to work. I need to do this. Why is that? How does that work with two different people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this has to do with really where I started with this work. So just to get some context, for a number of years when I was in higher education, I was working with kids as young as 4 and 5 years old at summer camps, all the way up to PhD students, and private school, public school, a number of different contexts. And what I identified is what I would call an emotional tolerance threshold. And what that is basically every body can only tolerate so much in life, right? So one person, as you're describing, and of course there could be different circumstances why the person is having that more laid back, at ease approach, but one person will respond very differently to a situation based on the conditioning of their bodies, in their upbringing, in the educational environments they've been in, learning, not just in a higher ed or formal education, but also outside of that, and the sorts of life experiences and opportunities they've had, which essentially create a kind of map in the body of what the body can and cannot deal with.
Right.
Okay. So what I was interested in was, how do you change that threshold where the person in the second situation you described in that anxiety, right?
Right.
That comes down to feeling and changing how we are able to process the feelings we have, as well as the information that our bodies are taking in. So we think of our bodies and our minds often as separate. I think they're interconnected. I think there's the intellect and the body, and they very much work either in concert. When we are listening to our feelings, we're processing our feelings, and we're also developing intellectually, or they can be really at odds, where somebody can be very intellectually developed and very, very disconnected and or shut down in their bodies. So in order to help your second person, because the first person's fine, right? They're adapting, they're dealing with things. It's not overwhelming their bodies. They're not at some tolerance threshold where they're feeling debilitated. Right. Second person is the one I'm concerned with. They're experiencing anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is overactivity in the vital organs. We have this sense of fight. I want to fight this, or we want to flee from it. That's flight, or we just freeze and we feel paralyzed, debilitated, and then go into isolation and withdrawal. The key is to continue to process the feelings when we're feeling like we're at our max of what we can tolerate emotionally. And then secondly, what are the facts of the situation? So what I like to often ask my clients, if they're in that state you describe, is what happened? Now, yes, I know this virus happened, right? But what specifically happened in your day? Was it with work? Was it personally in a relationship? Was it something with school? What happened when you started to get that feeling? Okay, once I identify this fact, I can then advise on practical steps to be taken. That person can then work on resolving those issues. Finally, doing the exercises that I teach, the body is able to integrate and be with this information, to hold it, and then they come to a calmer, more grounded sense of stability. From there, they can go off and do what they need to do.
Do you ever find that some clients, when you ask them, like, what happened, the story of what happened wasn't really what happened? Because that is that is something that they may see based on whatever they're going through, or I could say the pandemic happened, right? This whole this virus happened. Okay, but what is the virus? Is it that I'm afraid of the virus? Is it that I'm afraid of getting sick? Is it I'm afraid of staying home with people I don't like? What happened is, so when you say I find out what happened, do you get to the bottom of what it is?
That's what I look to do, yes. I can read pretty well in people's bodies, even as they're talking, more information, so to speak, than what is coming out of their mouths.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna start moving around.
Right? You're doing pretty good, right? This is good. This is a good thing. So basically, the idea is that, again, we are our bodies. I am well versed in reading the language of the body, as I'm also listening to the communication verbally of what my clients are saying. Right? So, oh, I'm feeling fine, but they're stiff. Their shoulders are up in this. Well, clearly not.
Yeah.
Right? Or, everything's terrible, but they're sitting up and they're actually speaking pretty calmly. Okay, well, I look at those things and basically, right, the key is, okay, whatever's going on, what do we have control over and what don't we have control over? You mentioned control earlier as well as fluidity. Those are two very important points.
Right.
On the topic of control, we have no control over what this virus is going to do, essentially, when it's going to end, whether it will end. We have zero control individually over that.
Right.
So we can start to get anxious when we look into the future and we try to think about all these possible scenarios of bad things that could happen when ultimately we do not know. Right? So a key point is admitting what we don't know, which is how long this will last, which is what the ultimate effects of it will be, and instead to focus on what can we personally do that is within our control in order to move ourselves forward in our lives. Okay. So that's what I would say for control. Really, we are each a decisive element in that sense. We can either make things worse for ourselves and fixate on these problems, or we can say, okay, well, I accept that this is here. How long it's going to last, I don't know. There will be a pre-coronavirus period. Eventually, there will be a post-coronavirus period. That's how these things go. And this ties into the second point, which is the fluidity with which to see that and operate based on that versus this fixation and stiffening where we want to resist something over which we have no control. It's like the weather. Can we control that? No. Can we put on a raincoat if it's raining? Yes. That's a good way to think about it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's really great to know that there is somebody who's doing the work to understand what place we're in, because having that ability to come to our truth, to even with the physical body, you have to understand it and allow someone who knows better than you to step in and just make you aware and give you an idea of what you can do, so you never feel alone. Because we always typically say, nobody understands, nobody's feeling what I'm feeling. I can't control this. This is a physical thing. It's just a part of this illness, or it's a part of this, it's, and we can certainly have those realities, but it's also in taking control and finding a way out of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great point. So that really, I think, has to do with the practical action piece of it, right? So expanding our breathing capacity is crucial. The more that we can breathe under stress in the midst of a crisis, the better able we will be when in stress and crisis to breathe through that. That's really what these exercises do. They are challenging, but they help the body relax, let go, and through that process, we are able to be lighter and more centered in what we need to approach. This idea of staying in one's truth, yes, we can hold that better and be less thrown off by the world if we are physiologically balanced. A simple example is having our toes slightly out when we're standing and our knees slightly bent versus having the knees hyperextended back and the toes in. Anybody can stand up and practice this and experience how they are not as stable when the toes are slightly in and the knees are hyperextended back.
Right.
Far more of a dancer.
Oh, sorry. I think it just, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I was going to say, no, it's something that it can make you feel off balance, is what you were saying.
Yes.
Completely unfamiliar. Now, sometimes that's a great thing, and sometimes that can make you go the other way.
Sure.
And you might have to go the other way before it can actually, before you can actually see results. But I guess they go hand in hand. Eventually they balance the rigidity versus, like we were saying, the fluidity. You tend to be more in balance as you face the rigid things, because you are more aware, you flow through that. Right?
Well, so the point is, it's not necessarily a balance between, on the one hand, rigidity and on the other hand, fluidity. Ultimately, it is increasing levels of fluidity and release and reduction of rigidity in the body. So the more fluid we become, the better we are able to respond to what life gives us, to go with what shows up. That's really where I think this idea of flow comes in, where
Yeah.
it's really a kind of harmonization between what we feel capable of doing and the challenges we are presented with. If we feel we can rise to the challenge and, okay, I can do this. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's testing my patience. It's testing my knowledge set. It's testing my emotional capacity. If we're able to face it and address it, that is where we start to have that sense of flow versus the debilitating feeling that I can't do this, I'm overwhelmed, oh, it's impossible, right? What I do is I move people from impossible, overwhelm,
Yeah.
fear, etc., when the body is wanting to shut down and freeze, run, and or hide, into, okay, I feel calm, I feel centered, I have an action plan, my body has processed this through the exercises, now I'm going to take action in my life in order to move in the direction of where I need to go. As they gain momentum in that, that's where that flow starts to happen. And that's where new opportunities and possibilities emerge.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's it's like you're taking somebody by the hand, walking them through, giving them all the tools that they need and saying,
Mhm.
"All right, there you go." And it's so nice to have. That's like I translate that to helping somebody to see their worth when they cannot,
Mhm.
helping to when inspiring someone, or to just giving them that confidence, and also not just to have the confidence, but to have the skill set as
Mhm.
well, and
Yep.
understanding how it works so that even if they feel they don't have the skill set, they can always turn back to it and reflect on that.
Yep.
And, that's a pretty powerful thing. You have to have a really powerful mind to do that.
Well, I would argue body, especially. This
Body,
is
right, right.
critical, right? And again, this is coming from someone who spent 10 years in academia in various roles, right? As a student, as a facilitator of, co-facilitator of workshops. I had a range of different roles, worked in different capacities, and came to realize that all of that intellectual work,
Hmm.
if I didn't feel good, so what, right? Now, just bear with me. People often think, okay, if they have professional success, it will save them. They think if they have financial success, it will save them. Any number of things that if I get here, everything will be great.
Yeah, yeah.
There are plenty of people who have gotten to there, right, to
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
point, and
yeah.
still feel terrible.
Yep.
Therefore, our health is our wealth, how we feel in our bodies, regardless of whatever it is we're doing, which
Right,
again is a function of conditioning. It's a function of whether or not we're eating well, we're breathing deeply, we're learning to let go, we're taking care of ourselves,
right.
right, and staying in shape. If we're not doing those things, you could have any range of levels of success and accomplishment. You're still not going to feel very good, and you're probably
Work
not going to feel fulfilled.
with what you really got. That
Mhm.
is you're in control of.
Mhm.
You're that if I get this, then I'll be that. If I have this, then I'll feel that. Then I'll be better. None of those things are in your control,
Mhm.
and we tend to focus on those things, and that's a
Mhm.
dangerous way to live life because, like you said, well, basically, there's always the next thing, right?
Mhm.
Now, if you go backwards and you get rid of all those things, then you get to have your physical health and what you really do have. What I have is this moment. What I
Mhm.
have is my body.
Mhm.
What can I be doing right now to 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 use these two things in the most powerful way to benefit me?
Mhm.
And I guess it's like you said, both you need to have the body and the mind, and yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing. I like it. I like it. There's that if then life is something I've walked down that I that
Mhm.
was a part of my journey at one point, and we still do that.
Absolutely.
It's
It's,
not,
yeah.
it doesn't go away,
Yeah.
but
Which is
definitely
fine.
becoming
It's
more.
fine. Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, it's a human thing, right? So loving your human is not just saying, I'm okay with making mistakes. Loving your human, loving yourself is understanding yourself and being the master, not the puppet, or well, not the puppet, being the master puppeteer, right? So you get
Yeah.
to control how you step into life because you get to see the results.
Yeah.
You're not rolling the dice and saying, okay, well, let's just see what happens with this. And then your body takes a hit directly
Mm-hmm.
from those things that you were unconsciously doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I wanted to, well, give me 1 second. Let me pause
Sure.
because I have to plug in my,
Yeah.
hold on 1 second. Okay, so Andrew, I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of connection.
Mm-hmm.
I know that on our platform, it's really important. You know, this is
Mm-hmm.
what we're all about. Um, the the connecting has allowed me to learn so much about myself. It has allowed me to reflect on my human, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes from an emotional, like mental, like a not a physical level, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in more of a just an exploration and a self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
through reflection with others. Um, how does uh, like isolation, like in this moment now when we're facing this pandemic, we're
Mm-hmm.
asked to stay home, isolate, keep away. That's your safety,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what effects does that have on the human like body and emotional and
Yeah.
because I find that like I wouldn't be able to survive. I can't live without people. No
Mm-hmm.
way. Like that's my
Right.
thing.
And we're not,
I do this. I love it.
and this is a very important point you're making. We are not designed to live without each other. We are social organisms, and it is crucial to have a sense of belonging within some group, within some community, families, social gatherings, etc. So this is a very difficult time if we pretend like, okay, it's normal to just sit around at home alone, or because some people are,
Yeah.
and not go out. I mean, no, it's almost a solitary confinement, really, that we are confronting with, which can have very negative effects mentally and also physiologically. So an important distinction I want to make is that there is this idea of social distancing, which has, gone out quite quickly, and we've really started. That's locked in terminology, really, for how people are speaking a lot about this situation.
Right.
I want to delineate that from something that has also been mentioned, which is physical distancing. Really, what we are dealing with is a need for physical distancing so that the virus, which is, again, it's confusing to know how exactly it's spread, but the idea is that if we are not in close proximity in large groups with one another,
Mm-hmm.
or if we think we have symptoms, or even if we may be asymptomatic, that we're connecting with those that have vulnerabilities or predispositions for this virus. It does not mean that we are not in a position where we can connect, where we can call people, we can do Zoom, for example. There's any number of ways in which people can still stay socially connected, even if physically they are distancing themselves. So that's one very important point to make.
Right.
Secondly, normally, in a healthy person's lifestyle, they are getting consistent exercise, hopefully on a daily basis, walking, jogging, they are going to the gym. So if they're now home in isolation, it's not that we should just say, oh, well, that's it. I'm not going to do that anymore because I'm quarantined. No, the exact opposite. You have to stay healthy. Keep the immune system strong. Now, there are cardiovascular and calisthenic exercises for that, which is great to keep the body, strong. At the same time, though, it is very important to increase the breathing capacity of the body. This virus affects and attacks the respiratory system. So if you don't have coronavirus, the exercises that I teach are crucial for continuing to expand your breathing capacity, as well as process all of what you're going through so your immune system is not compromised due to stress, anxiety, etc. In addition, if you do have the coronavirus, it is also crucial to breathe and expand the breathing capacity, to exercise, and to remain engaged with the body.
Right.
There was an interesting video that was on Facebook I saw not too long ago of Andrew Cuomo's brother, who was diagnosed positive, tested positive for the virus. And his conversation, he was relaying between himself and a doctor. And the doctor was saying something to the effect of, the virus wants us on our backs, right? Which is a kind of just giving up. That's the last thing we need. What we need is to be working on our health, working on our conditions. Even Andrew Cuomo's brother, the doctor was saying, okay, if you're having pain moving, you need to move.
Yep.
You know, if it's hard to breathe, you need to breathe. It is important to, again, not just say, okay, well, this is just terrible. I'm, either home and I don't have the virus, but I'm just going to sit around and do nothing and let my body, deteriorate. Or, okay, I have the virus and I'm just going to let my body deteriorate. And so what?
Right.
Both of those are passive responses, which take this idea of control we talked about earlier, the locus of control as being outside of the body, saying that, okay, well, the world is in control of me and I'm just a victim. I don't think that mentality is healthy. There are points where we will feel stressed, we will feel upset, we will feel afraid. Okay, acknowledge we are having those feelings. Don't try to destroy them, push them away. Just be with those feelings and then recognize the fact that, okay, what can I do personally in response? What are the actions I can take in terms of my health, with eating, with good rest, with keeping my body in shape, with staying properly hydrated, and most especially breathing.
Right.
When we are under fear and anxiety, the body wants to do this. That's what happens. The body's natural response to anxiety is, in fact, depression. It has to shut down that activity in the vital organs. So again, to make this very clear, breathing capacity needs to be expanded. That's how people will continue to process the stress, the anxiety, when they are feeling overwhelmed, to process those feelings rather than being debilitated by them. Taking good health through, or good care of themselves through good eating habits, as well as continuing to maintain the strength of their bodies through working out, and doing those activities as well.
I would love for us to, next time we'll have to sit and you'll have to share some of those exercises with our viewers and what those look like. And, take on maybe a real situation, somebody
Sure.
that you are dealing with, or we can even ask one of our viewers to speak up and just, I would be so curious to see what that looks like.
Sounds great.
I would volunteer myself, but I'm doing this, so I can't do that.
And you're doing well. Again, we've been talking, and it sounds like you have a very good approach. And again, it's what is doable, right? The key is to say, here's what's going on. Here's what's within my control, and identifying those facts and the actions we can take within those facts. And then here's what's outside of my control. Very important to have that distinction.
Well, definitely really great stuff we talked about. I think that we can keep going further down and do some more Zoom calls in the future, and just to share. But this really helps me to also figure out the needs of the viewers. That we have people who are, and they're just people. At the end, we're all people. It's funny because on this side of the screen, I look at you and I see Dr. Andrew, and you said something very important, which is you do this based on things that you have done.
Yep.
It's not just things that you read about. Of course, that can always help expand your knowledge, but because you have done these things, you actually are more knowledgeable than somebody who is just reading, because we can all get on Google, we can all get on and
easy
information. So
yeah,
when you say that, I feel like I'm talking to somebody I can trust. I feel like it's somebody that has the experience necessary. For me, and what I do with I haven't called them my clients, they're my friends. Everything's my friend, because on my platform, that's how I get to do what I do, and being authentically somebody who cares and opening this platform to have these conversations, right? And it's because of my journey and my experiences, how I got to do the things that I did as well.
Hmm.
So you do it very well. I trust and believe that what you do is like, you do it with integrity and with your expertise and knowledge. And that's why you see the results.
Hmm.
For me, I feel it's the same way. It's because I've walked down this road with many different people, and I can apply that today. And I'm not, uh, I don't have, there's no block. I flow into that
Hmm.
space.
Yep.
And that's really a wonderful thing. So I love that we can bring both of our knowledge, we bring it all
Yep.
together and
Yep.
share it. Because I know you're here and you love what you do. You're out to genuinely help people.
Hmm.
And that is so important. And because I read people, I can read that about you. It's very good. It's
Well,
very
thank you.
genuine.
I
So
appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really appreciate you spending the time and your whole journey really that brought you here. I'm so grateful for all that you are, because we need people just like you who are doing this, especially at this time. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your kind words, and I'm happy to help. And again, if there are people that see this information that we're talking about, and they and are listening as well to what we're saying, that I'd be happy to help people. And again, the key is that people keep getting where they want to go, and that this crisis is not going to, completely deter whatever journey they're on. My emphasis and my interest is in continuing to get people where they want to go.
Yep.
So people tell me what they want, I tell them how to get there. That's the basic idea.
Exactly. Perfect. It's good to know what you want.
Yeah.
What I want is for myself, I want to take off the mask, not just the coronavirus mask, take off the mask that everybody's trying to take off.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take it off for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
not me physically doing it for them, but I want to be confident enough in myself to be able to be an example of that. And so to share that. And I think from your standpoint, what is it that you want?
Well, I think that it's important for people to be able to open up and to realize that, again, there are still things we can be doing now that can advance us, that can better us, and to really use the crisis as an opportunity. Often people don't want to change unless they're confronted with a crisis, right? Unless we're into, what one could describe as an abyss of sorrow, of despair, do we really want to change and transform? And that's a pretty consistent theme throughout history and various stories. So it relates to an idea from Joseph Campbell of crisis and transformation within the hero's journey, which would be another topic entirely. But the basic idea here is that crisis can precipitate change. What I focus on is what changes are immediate, what are actionable, what can people do to direct their energies in the direction they need to go to get the results that they ultimately want.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to ask my viewers and see what I can ask them to get the results that they want. What can they do?
Wonderful.
Yes.
That's great.
Okay, Andrew.
Hey.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful to see you. And I'm glad we did this. And let's talk again soon. I know you have to get going right now, but we can catch up later if you want to text me, email me, or call. Okay.
Very good. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Shukran.
Have fun. Of course. Take care.
You too.